Accessing library computer data.
And to make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Penske Podcast. If you haven't tuned in before, this is a podcast where we are running through all 178 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, giving our thoughts and feelings about each and every one. Right now we're up to episode 14 of season 2. This one was directed by Robert Icekove. It was a teleplay by David Assail and Robert McCullough. Story goes to David Assail. It aired back on April 24th, 1989. In this one, Riker must decide whether to accept command of his own starship, and negative feelings surface when his estranged father arrives to brief him on the mission. Wesley Crusher, LaForge, and Data attempt to determine why Worf seems more agitated than usual, and discover that he's upset over not participating in a key Klingon ritual. We're going to be joined by Modi Operandus to talk about this one, and Modi's been here before. You should all know him by now. And right after this clip, we will get to discussing the Icarus Factor.
Dad. You're the civilian advisor, the strategic attaché?
I asked Captain Picard to keep it quiet. I didn't want to make you nervous, excited.
It's been 15 years. Excitement is hardly the appropriate emotion.
You've done well. First officer on the Enterprise. Quite a feather in your cap.
I've worked hard.
Of course. I'm proud of you, son.
If you'll excuse me, I've got my duties to attend to. When you've settled in, we can complete our briefing. Have security arrange an escort for this gentleman.
Hey everybody, welcome back. How's everyone doing? Just as I promised, I'm sitting here with Modi Operandus. Modi, how are you?
Hello, sir.
Good to have you back. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. How's are you ready to step into the squared circle for a little Anbo Jitsu?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Let me just put my visor down so I'm ready.
Yeah, and then you have to trust me that I will also put my visor down at the same time and not just hit you with the stick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know what we're talking about, Anbo Jitsu is some kind of Japanese sport that the show made up that Riker and his father do battle with. So that is that's Icarus Factor. This is the episode where Riker's father visits and stirs up some shit with Riker, and then Wesley, LaForge, and Data try to figure out why Worf is being such a little pissy son of a bitch. What'd you think?
Everybody's got unresolved daddy issues, it sounds like.
Every single
person.
Yeah, everyone's got some emotional problems going on in this one. What'd you think, to start off?
I like this episode quite a bit, actually.
Oh, did you?
I thought it was pretty good.
Interesting. We'll have a lot of disagreement here, I think, then.
All right.
I hated this one.
Really?
Really, really strong hate feeling, which is funny because I don't remember disliking it as much as I did this recent watch. I remembered it always just sort of being there. I remember the Anbo Jitsu, which is a big thing. And I remembered his father, and that was pretty much it. And then I watched it, and it was just so... I thought it might be the soap opera-y-ishness of it, and it might just be the fact that I can't stand the Riker father storyline in this one.
Okay.
What'd you like about it?
I mean, I kind of liked the idea that it's actually like the plot of this could be any other show, to be honest with you, and that might be why it worked with me, because it's got a lot of universal themes of things you'd see. I mean, it could be set anywhere. It's kind of what I liked about it, actually. It wasn't a very like Star Trek episode necessarily. It was a very just TV episode kind of thing. I don't know. It
really was. It was a It felt like any sort of like WB drama from the 90s.
Yeah,
kind of.
It could have been anywhere.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be. It's not a spaceship. I mean, it benefited from that fact a little bit, but with the Anbo Jujitsu especially. But
that wouldn't fit.
Aside from that, if you add Anbo Jujitsu to like an episode of House or something like that, it could be easily set in a hospital or someplace else like that, you know?
Right. You don't see the family from like Seventh Heaven doing any Anbo Jitsu on each other or anything like that. Yeah, I just think that I feel like this episode's a little bit all over the place. Like, does the show not want me to like Kyle Riker? Because I do not like Kyle Riker.
No, they don't want you. He's not a likable character. They do not want you to like him.
Okay, because he seems
that's intentional.
he seems to be the worst. It seems to me that through this episode, what happens is we meet this horrible character named Kyle Riker, who abandoned his child when he was 13, and whose mother.
I gave you 13 years. If you can't handle that, then
get out.
It's too bad.
He leaves this kid whose mother had just died, and that's the reason he left him. I think. Is that what's implied by what goes on? No, because Riker was 2 when he died, so he was hanging out with Riker for a little bit.
The implication is that he. The implication is that his mother died, and then his dad kind of withdrew into himself, I'm thinking.
Yes.
But he also said he was too young to remember his mother, that kind of thing. So I don't know exactly the timeline here.
I think,
but it seemed to me that he tried for a while. Maybe his mom died when he's like 5 or something like that, and he tried for like 13 years or whatever, and then left when he's like 15 or something like that.
Okay. Yes. My timeline I had written down. She died when he was 2, and his father left when he was 13. Because the father's always saying like you couldn't even remember her.
Right. But that makes sense. I think you're right about that. The 2 years old, and then he said I gave you 13 years, meaning either that Riker was 13 when he left, or Riker was like 15 when he left.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'll assume it's 13 to make, because that's what this dick of a character would do. But
right.
It's just so strange that Riker has this father that we meet who admits to abandoning his child, has all these weird conversations with Riker where he's like, I love this line where he goes, "She was your mother, but she was my wife." And it's like,
who says that?
Who says that to their child? And also, it feels like, I don't know, I just feel like the mother bond, I feel like he's saying that sentence backwards,
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was, in my opinion, like in my estimation, a good episode, the line would be, "She was your wife, but she was my mother." That seems to make a little bit more sense. But he just flips it around on him. And then,
didn't make a lot of sense, no.
And Kyle Riker is just this horrible human being who everyone on the ship seems to be pushing Riker to reconcile with.
Well, just Pulaski mostly. Like everybody else is kind of like, we see through this guy. He's not as charming as he acts. Pulaski's the only one that's like, oh, he's really a nice guy. If you get past all of the fake humility and the weird issues of abandonment that he does with this child, he's a really great guy. Aside from that,
he was in.
Trust me, I've had 3 ex-husbands.
He was. I know a shithead when I see one. He was in. Kyle Riker was in a explosion, and only he survived, and that makes him a great man. That is essentially Pulaski's logic for why Kyle Riker is a good guy.
Her line is, I never seen someone who basically wanted to stay alive that badly, so I fell in love with him. Like, what are you talking about? That's not a reason to fall in love with somebody.
That's a big statement towards her doctoring abilities, too, where people are just like, kill me, just get this over with. I just don't want to be here anymore.
My big selling point in a relationship is my self-preservation skills.
It's so stupid, because I feel like Troy is also trying to reconcile them. She has that really awkward scene where she basically emotionally rapes Kyle Riker in front of everybody for no particular reason, which is a character trait they've been really building with her, where she just point blanks people who aren't looking for any sort of guidance, and she just accuses them of
brings it real.
Just harboring.
I like that they gave her something to do this time around. Like, this is the first episode in a while that I've at least on the podcast with you, where I've actually watched and she said something to do besides I don't trust those people.
Yeah,
and true. She's actually like just bluntly laying into people about stuff, which I like that kind of trait, actually.
Oh, do you? I find it so odd that's allowable. I'd just be like, can you shut the fuck up? Like, I'm not in therapy right now, and Dr. Pulaski doesn't need to know my innermost feelings about this. It certainly helps to advance the plot, but it's such a weird thing for a counselor to do.
It makes her less human, which they don't really like. You'd figure someone with who can read minds would not be acting like a normal person for the most part. And she tries, I think in the other episode, she's trying so hard to act like a human, but like I think just like her mother, she can just be blunt and honest with people, and that's what's coming out in those scenes, maybe.
Oh, maybe. I mean, that's true, because it's funny you say that, because I actually thought the same thing watching this one. I thought that Troy was noticeably not human, because she has the later scene with Pulaski where she is talking about human males are so peculiar because they feel the need to compete with each other.
There are still some traits that are endemic to gender.
You think that they're going to knock each other's brains out because they're men?
Human males are unique. Fathers continue to regard their sons as children even into adulthood, and sons continue to chafe against what they perceive as their father's expectations of them.
It's almost as if they never really grow up at all, isn't it?
And she whenever she does that, it's always funny that she brings up a fact that seems to be totally not true based on everything we've seen of other races in this universe. And also just the fact that she seems totally distant from humans at that point. And I was thinking it might have been more interesting to have her be a full Betazoid and make them actually more unique, more Klingon-like, in that they don't really fit in with humans. Because it's like you're saying, I think we talked about it during Haven, Loxana's behavior sort of makes sense as if you were raised with a group of people who could all read each other's thoughts. You know,
right, yes.
There would be no reason to be secretive or to not just point blank each other with things.
There's no reason that there'd be anything except honesty when everyone can know each other's lies. You know what I mean? Like, there's only honesty at that point then.
Yes, and we were just in our previous episode of Haven, we were just thinking it would have been cool for the Betazoids to do that. But Troy doesn't really do it all the time. And I think they only say, they sort of try to get away with it by saying she's half human and therefore isn't as quite as powerful as the other Betazoids. But it still strikes me as a little bit weird that she would do that. And it certainly is just done to sort of advance plot. But
yeah, a little bit. But I still kind of like that they gave her more to do in this episode, actually, instead of just being like, I don't trust him. Like, no, I know. Riker doesn't like him either. It's fine.
Random bit of trivia.
Everyone likes him.
This is the first appearance of her office.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when she and Riker have the pointless goodbye scene. That's set in her counselor's office, which is the first time we've ever seen it.
Rarely used location also. I mean, it's the first appearance of it, but I don't know if they use it that often even.
No, I feel like they do it. I remember a couple data scenes with sitting with her when they try to figure things out later on, when she's wearing that sort of sea green dress during that era of the show, when she was wearing that thing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it's just that's really my main issue here is just that the father storyline, I feel that the show is trying to make this seem like this is a good relationship after all is said and done, because they come to a reconciliation really out of nowhere.
Well, I think, okay, so when we were having this conversation just a minute ago about being him, whether or not he's a likable character, and I've always didn't think that Kyle Riker was a likable character at all.
Right.
The whole plot resolves itself when he cheats at the game. He cheats at Ambo Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
And Riker's like, you've been cheating my entire life. You're not a good guy.
It is a great dishonor.
Then Riker's like, I mean, I think Riker came to realizations like, why do I value this guy's opinion so much? Like, why do I care what this guy does or thinks? He's a terrible person.
That's true.
So I guess it's fine. If he loves me, it's fine. I guess let bygones be bygones here now. He's not a good person. I'm better than him.
See, I never get the opinion that Riker even considers his father's opinion whatsoever. It feels...
I don't know. Yeah, you might be right, but...
It feels to me like they just sort of came up with the idea that Riker and his father would be estranged, and they never really hammered down why this would be happening. And I actually have a quote from the director. This is the only episode that this director... this guy who directed this episode also directed Kelly and Zach movie. You know, the American Idol movie?
No, I don't know that one.
there's some...
I'll take your word for it, though.
There's some American Idol movie that this guy directed, which was a complete and total bomb. But this is what he had to say about this. It was an emotional piece, a character piece between two people. The father had deserted Riker for 25 years, then he comes back and you may have this confrontation. Well, according to Gene Roddenberry, by the 24th century, we're all kind of resolved these feelings of anger, so it's very hard to play. If you're not going to serve the resentment and the anger, what happens once the two of them get together? You can't get into any real human drama. The original series was much more humanistic in its approach. And he never came back to work on the show because he didn't like working with these constraints. Apparently, Gene Roddenberry shot down a lot of the drama that was in the original script between these two. It was much more focused on them and their sort of disagreements. And it certainly feels like a script that had a lot of it ripped out and was just replaced with the Worf storyline.
Which, yeah, it was a little weird, that B plot. And there's also a C plot in here for no reason. The Data and Geordi figuring out what's wrong with the ship C plot.
Yeah, which was totally...
You could have just introduced that at the beginning of the episode, because I know you want to have a reason to go to this planet or whatever, but you could have just never brought it up again. No one cares if you figure out the issue with the thing. Like, nobody's gonna remember that.
There
You
wasn't-
don't have to resolve it at the end of the episode.
There wasn't even an issue. It was the most low-key drama
It's not
conflict.
an issue, says Data. Exactly.
I guess
And it turns out Data was right. It's not an issue. Okay, great. I'm glad we spent time on this. Thank you.
that was wonderful. And I mean, they do that at the beginning, just bring this up, and I guess it's really just to bring them to the starbase. Although they seem to be going to the starbase anyway because Riker is getting command of the ship. So I feel like
so they had to bring him to they had to bring him to the thing for some reason because they needed to give Riker the ship, but they didn't want to reveal it in that first scene that Riker's getting his own command.
Right.
So they needed some other reason for them to be going to this thing. And Picard says, "Oh, we could use some R&R. Oh, we can get this thing looked at. That doesn't actually bother anybody." And Data says it's not an issue. So it's only there. That whole C plot's there only because they didn't want to reveal that Riker's getting his own command in the very first scene of that episode.
which is absurd. That's
It's
like
absurd. It's absurd.
Okay, that makes absolutely no sense that Picard would sort of lead the crew into like a total mystery scenario just because he's going to offer Riker or not even offer, he's just going to tell him that he's going to take this command of this vessel that's going off into the middle of nowhere, apparently. Did you feel that Picard was very strange in this episode?
Yes, I was just thinking that. It's like he's like, yeah, he's all happy for Riker and stuff like that, but also he's like not involved in the only lines he really has is when he's telling Riker what his choices are in that one scene, and when he's first to letting him know and congratulating him. That's his only two really inputs in this whole thing. Well, he doesn't even show up to Worf's ceremony either.
No, he doesn't.
Which I thought was kind of a dig against him. I doesn't like Worf that much.
I thought that Picard seemed like he was like stoned in the first couple scenes that he had in this one because he's talking about in the opening, the teaser, he's talking about how the ship needs repairs and he's just like, hey, we'll just go to the starbase, get some R&R. And then he wants to talk to Riker. He offers Riker this position, and Picard seems weirdly pleased by everything he's doing in this show. Mm-hmm. He's sort of smiling all the time. And then he has that weird scene where he's talking to Riker about his new first officer, and he's like, Picard is so impressed that this guy knows 40 languages in an era where they have a universal translator that makes knowing 40 languages completely a useless talent at some point. You know what I mean? It's like...
Exactly, yeah. Well, it's still, I guess it's impressive that the guy can decode languages on the fly, but yeah, Picard does seem smitten with the guy that he just like met once.
Yeah, he totally was. And he's just like beaming this entire episode at like the things that are going on, and he's weirdly uninvolved in everything else. Uninvolved to the point where I think O'Brien might have more screen time than Picard in this one. Because
I think you are. He's got better lines in this one too. O'Brien's killing it in this episode, actually.
O'Brien should have won Best Supporting Actor for this season or something. I think he's bringing it in like every single episode. He's also ingratiating himself into every crew member's life. He's having drinks with a Riker.
Female? No. Career? Career?
Family.
That is trouble. You choose your enemies. You choose your friends. But family, that's in the stars.
So I've heard.
He's talking to Data and Geordi in the engineering, complaining about how they have to run these tests even though the transporter system is working fine. And then he knows everything about Klingon pain sticks.
Yeah, he's like got invited to this thing like offhandedly like by Wesley. He's like, oh yeah, I guess I'll go to that. Sure, Worf. Yeah, I like that guy. And then like he's like an expert on pain sticks. And the story he's telling to Wesley about the whole thing, about like it ends with, and then the guy's head exploded. It's like, I want to hear the rest of the story. It's amazing. O'Brien needs more screen time, please.
Yeah, what exactly was he doing where people were just poking, I guess it was like a cow or something with pain sticks until its head exploded. It's very much like that that Vietnam book you had to read in high school, the things they carried. Did you ever read that book?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
no, I don't think so.
Where they, there's like just soldiers in Vietnam, but there's like one chapter where they sort of like, they find like a baby buffalo and just like shoot it to death, like slowly torture it. It felt very much similar to this thing. But man, yeah. So everyone pick up things they carried. A very happy-go-lucky story of
sounds like
adventure in Vietnam. But I just felt that I honestly thought that the Worf ending, the ending of the Worf storyline, was the best part of this one, because
Yeah,
the plot getting to the ending of the Worf storyline was so obnoxious. The Wesley's after school special about what it takes to make friends and like to maintain friendships.
Yeah. Anything where Wesley solves the problem for anything is pretty much just going to be a bad plot line, I think.
Yes, and it's also getting a little old where someone will be like, Worf, I know it's your Age of Ascension anniversary, and he goes, how do you know that? Only Klingons know it. It's like, well, Wesley looked online. And
we have a teenager that has used Wikipedia and figured it out.
He figured it out.
It's not as secret as you think it is.
Oh my god, it drives me up a wall. But it just felt like such a after school special of like, I even understood why Worf yelled at Wesley the first time because he was being super obnoxious.
He was super annoying. He turned it on to 11 in that scene. Like, Wesley was more annoying than he's ever been. I'm like, yeah, get him, Worf.
Yeah,
you don't have to have anything going on with you. Just tell him off at that point.
Yeah, you outrank him. Tell him to fuck off and go fly the ship or whatever he does.
Yep. What's wrong with Worf? Maybe you annoyed the shit out of him. Ever think of that?
Although I did like the scene with Data sort of accosting him. It's sort of the first.
Data was better about it, though.
He was. It's one of the first scenes of the Worf and Data relationship sort of becomes funny because I don't feel that Worf really respects Data. Eventually, as the series goes on, he sort of honors him out of respect of rank, but he's very detached from Data. He always thinks everything Data says is very he regards him very oddly.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from Worf's perspective, Worf is the character who feels like more emotions than anybody.
Yes.
And Data's the one that can't do any of that.
Right.
So they're very polar opposites there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's I just wanted to sort of give I feel fittingly where I'm sort of all over the place in what I want to talk about this one because I feel the episode is all over the place. I just didn't. Just to go through all the plot lines, I hate the Riker plot line. Mostly because I was getting the feeling that the episode is doing this story where I feel like some people believe this, where like family is everything, and no matter how badly family treats you, they deserve to have you in their life. It's like a weird abuse sort of validation or something.
Yeah, I didn't get that out of that. I have the complete opposite perspective that this is coming to the realization that just because someone's your father doesn't mean they're a good person, kind of thing. Like that was my realization of this. It was almost like a Mad Men-esque thing with the kids on that show realizing more, like, my dad's kind of a dick. I don't really like this guy.
Well, right, and I would have been.
It'd be okay,
I'd be fine with that if they didn't reconcile at the end, but they do.
Yeah.
So
they do reconcile at the end.
It makes it problematic if they didn't. If they continued to not like each other, I'd respect it a little bit more. But,
that's true.
But Pulaski's scene with Riker where she tells him she's like, give your father a chance, when his father is a total scumbag. Like, I don't understand any reason why a female doctor should be like, that guy who abandoned you and left you alone when you were 13, you should go talk to him because he tried to live.
Well, her scene with Deanna where they're talking about, we mentioned it before here, where they're talking about how, men are men, that's why we love them. Like,
right.
No, this is not actually like anything going on here. This guy is terrible and you are crazy. What's going on here?
It was such
you're the least likable here, so of course you're in love with this guy, right?
That's exactly right. That was such a weird scene. She's like, well, that's why we're attracted to these hulking men who beat each other with sticks. It's like,
so stupid.
What are you talking about? This is the stupidest conversation.
Like for all the Roddenberry's influence here of like saying like, oh, they're evolved past anger and that kind of thing at this point.
Yep.
They still resolve it with clubbing each other, caveman style, and the women are still like swooning over it when that happens, kind of thing.
It is.
Okay, let me refine that portion of it if you're gonna get mad about anything here.
Totally out of the 1950s. There was a post on the Star Trek Reddit that was like, is TNG just a sort of utopian view of the 1950s? And I think it certainly is in these early seasons. It tends to go that way, which is not. It's like early 50s mixed with like Marxist undertones.
Yeah,
it's a very weird combination.
Very strange.
And I also think this episode does a huge disservice to. This basically is the knife in the heart of the Pulaski character, because if they want us to like this character, she cannot be romantically involved with the biggest scumbag that the ship has brought onto itself.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a strange writing decision.
I'm convinced that they do not actually want us to like Kyle Riker. Despite them getting together at the end there, I don't think they want us to like him. And the fact that Pulaski does adds credence to that.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's true. I didn't even really understand why Pulaski had to be involved with him.
No, it doesn't make any sense either. Like, they had somebody that's similar aged on the crew here, so they wanted to
just hook
match
him up
somehow.
Huh.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They needed... The audience was clamoring for that Pulaski love plot line, is what we're all, like, looking after.
Yes, and I have a question for you. So Riker hasn't seen this guy in 25 years, I think that's what I said. How does Kyle Riker seem to know everybody on the Enterprise?
Yeah, he gets around. Well, he's the attaché or whatever of some other thing. He's some nonsense.
So he's just super popular? Like everyone...
He's schmoozing, yeah, he's a schmoozer.
Yeah,
like well, Riker always seems to like... Earlier in a scene when him and Pulaski are talking, he says that, he valued his career over his wife, and they don't really resolve that.
Yes.
Or he went after his career instead of you kind of thing.
Right.
And she never really comments on that. She just says, forgive him kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like influences Riker's decision to not go after his career versus, just being happy kind of thing.
Right.
And being where he can make a difference and not following in his father's footsteps.
Yes.
Which, the title of this, Icarus Factor. Can we, terrible title on this?
It's a terrible title. What the fuck does Icarus have to do with anything that happened
exactly.
here? I mean, there's a father and son in the Icarus story,
right.
But it's not, the father trying to achieve something doesn't destroy the son.
Well, does it? Because he's trying to get his son to fly, and then is that the Icarus Factor here? Because he's trying to give his son wings, and his son flies too close to the sun and dies.
But Riker,
the moral here?
Riker comes out better than ever. He's like,
so that doesn't really, yeah. I don't know why the title. It's just like, that sounds really cool in the writer's room or something like that.
Yeah,
let's go with Icarus Factor.
Star Trek. Sometimes the titles for Star Trek are really good, and other times they're really bad. I feel like there's been a lot of swing and misses in the second season with their titling. Where Silence has released the Icarus Factor, and what was the last one we watched that had a stupid title?
Oh, I don't even remember. There's been so many.
The last one you were on was I can't even remember, but it feels like there's just been a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, bad titles. Work on your titles.
Contagion, maybe.
Show from 20 years ago. Yeah,
fix all this.
Yeah, work on it, guys.
But it makes me appreciate the Seinfeld nomenclature where everything is and then just something. And it's also
those are good titles actually.
I also appreciate the Friends thing where it's just the one with. Every episode is the one with, which
I like that title thing too. And originally, I'm glad they went away from this, but originally Family Guy was going to put death in every single title.
Oh, really?
The first 4 or 5 episodes have death in the title, or dead, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, this is dumb. We're going to run out of things. It's not going to make any sense here.
Yeah, you'll just start having normal episode titles that you'll tack like death onto or something.
Right.
Huh. It's just... you seem to like this a little bit more. I really have problems reconciling this Kyle Riker character.
I don't think he's supposed to be likable. Honestly, don't think so. I mean, this is before the age of anti-heroes as characters generally, but I don't think he's supposed to be very likable.
Very good.
Interesting little tidbit though you might have missed is that Mitchell Ryan was up for the role of Jean-Luc Picard at one point.
Yes, I think I did read that. And would that have been good?
No, that wouldn't have been good. He's a fine actor. I mean, he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. He's certainly not. He's sort of just sort of bland in that like American actor from the 50s and 60s kind of way.
Yes, that's true.
It
wouldn't have helped the show at all to have him as it would have probably killed it actually.
Yeah,
but he's not a bad actor in any stretch. He
probably would have been
boring.
He would have been very Kirk-like, sort of like a handsome. He would have been older at this point, but like in his youth, I'd imagine him as being very Kirky. And
that could be why he was up for it originally, maybe.
Yeah,
because he had that kind of Kirk vibe to sell it to the network or something like that.
Yep, exactly. Well, let's see what else I have for notes here. I do want to stress that this is an episode where a man tells his son, "She was just your mother. She was my wife," which is the most brutal line I think I've ever heard.
Completely likable. Is what you drew out of that, though.
Completely. They have a real good rapport. I also like that in the 24th century, when people get into personal arguments, they say "lower your shields" to each other.
It's so stupid too. Oh my god. I hate that so much.
It was real silly. So I guess the only thing we haven't talked about is the Worf subplot.
Okay.
Which is Worf is a little bit cranky, as we talked about. Wesley and all them try to figure out what's going on. They figure out that it's the anniversary of the Age of Ascension for him, and he has to go through this they create a holodeck program for him where he can get zapped by Klingons holding these like taser sticks, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the ending of that storyline. Where
It was good, like him laying on the ground saying thank you.
right, and
It was, again, that's all he said.
no,
It was good. I liked it.
No one helping him, just sort of looking down at him. He's pleased with it the way it is. It sort of makes sense as a Klingon thing to do. I don't think we ever see it again, but it kind of makes sense. And
It's interesting world building stuff, though. I kind of like it.
I thought the weakest part was the nonsense Worf was saying was kind of stupid. He's basically just saying,
no, that was terrible.
He's just like, the blood runs over my hands and blah blah blah, and then they stick him with the sticks, and he says,
and Data's like, he's supposed to be revealing his deepest secrets while getting tased, and then he's like saying nonsense poetry. It's so weird.
I'm going to have to assume that the stuff he was singing in Klingon was the deepest secrets.
Made more
because
sense,
that,
right?
It was not very interesting.
No.
Otherwise,
They just wanted him saying some cool stuff, I guess, but not even that cool. It was kind of like, I don't know,
generic.
Weird. It's weird stuff. Yeah, generic Klingon stuff.
Yeah.
What would a Klingon say in this situation? Let's make him say that.
Yeah, he'd probably talk about war and fighting and blood and all that stuff.
Rivers of blood, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting little character building. It's one of those storylines you could stick that in any episode, I think.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I think they tried to pair it with the Riker storyline, but it doesn't really fit.
No, it doesn't fit. It was like a coming of age thing, I guess, or coming of age revisited thing, and it's like Riker's arc here is completely different than that.
Exactly. Riker's not really a coming of age. If it is, it's like the most belated coming of age story, like when a man is 35 and he's coming of age.
Yeah, he's coming of age to hate his father some more, and then all of a sudden forgive him for 25 years of absence.
I mean, maybe that's the phenomenon nowadays, or you know how they say 45 is the new 35 or whatever. It's like 35 is the new 20 something.
65 is the, when your father's 85 or whatever, is the time you reconcile on his deathbed.
I did not like this episode at all. I was watching it getting very angry, thinking it might be the worst episode of the series. It was certainly a contender for it. Just because I thought the themes were so poor. But that's interesting. So, I mean, what would you... did I have anything else? No, I went through all my notes. Do you have anything else you wanted to add about this one?
I thought the set for the Anbo Jujitsu thing was like really interesting, that the gymnasium only had Anbo Jujitsu in it.
Yeah,
we should the only thing in the gymnasium.
We should talk about Anbo Jujitsu or whatever the fuck it's called, because it's certainly odd. It's weird that it has its own dedicated room, which they've shown before. I think in We'll Always Have Paris, there's shown to be a fencing gym that is not a holodeck.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, why aren't these things just on the holodeck?
Well, for one, the holodeck is booked by your ascension ceremonies. That's why.
All this really implies is that so much of the ship is just dead weight.
Right, exactly.
It's like
there's a lot of oxygen you're filling up this place, a lot of heat you're pumping into these rooms that could be saved for other things, probably.
Yeah, like we need a scene where Picard is like reviewing like the sort of like reports from everyone. He's like, we could fit a science laboratory in the jujitsu room, and instead Riker's in there fighting with his father in some cast-off American Gladiator, failed test thing.
Yeah. It was the American Gladiator uniforms too, I'm pretty sure. They just put some Japanese writing on it.
Yeah, it was super tight.
And
super tight too. Riker's helmet was like squeezing his face so much that his beard was
face
popping out.
bulging out of it. It was very strange. It was like you can't take the scene of them reconciling or whatever that was supposed to be seriously if their faces are bulging out of their helmets for this jujitsu thing.
Their fat faces, and they just have to keep lifting up. And so just to describe this for anyone who hasn't seen the episode or can't remember it, it's basically a sumo ring where you're wearing a suit of armor and you have a stick that beeps when it goes near somebody. Is that how it works?
Yes. So one end of the stick had like a sensor on it that beeped when it sensed someone else in front of it.
Right.
And the back end was like the jousting thing from American Gladiators.
Right. Just a big a padded Q-tip that you can bash somebody with.
Yep.
And So you're totally blind because you're wearing these visors, and you use the sensor to find somebody when it makes no sense because the ring is so small. You could just swing the thing in a circle, and you would
start swinging.
You would hit who's ever there. And the the Tour.com guy, he does reviews for these occasionally. And I always like his reviews, but he gets very funny for this one. I'm just going to read it to you.
Okay.
But if you go to tour.com and check out Keith DeCandido's reviews, I always like reading his things after I've watched the episodes. But he, where is it here? He says, and then we have the, quote, ultimate evolution of the martial arts, end quote. When I was first watched this episode as a college student, I thought Anbo Jitsu was stupid. Now, 25 years later, I'm a first-degree black belt in karate, and I can say with authority that it is incredibly stupid. Staffs that long are completely impractical in a circle that small. Plus, the ultimate evolution of the martial arts would require physical skills beyond manipulation of a staff, none of which are evident in the Rikers match. So he goes a little deep there, I think, on a fake bullshit sport, but it's a good point nonetheless.
It's dumb, yeah. But they put a lot of money in that set because there's like all these like little like the ring has like a big like symbol in the middle of it.
Yep.
And there's like all of the stuff around. There's like banners hanging. It's ridiculous. They spent so much money on that.
It's shot from
they could have just done it on the holodeck.
A crane overhead, and it's the
Yeah, they did. It had like the full cinematic like Karate Kid shot from the top of the ring kind of thing. It was weird.
And
it was weird.
It's funny because the like suits of armor they're wearing don't look cheap. You know, they don't look like they were just sort of thrown together. They definitely probably cost like $20,000 each to make those little outfits that they were wearing in this.
They were borrowed from some other movie or something like that, though. Like I don't know, what's like some roller derby thing or something. Like I don't have no idea what they were borrowed from, but they were definitely borrowed from something else.
Yeah, it'd be like the roller derby from hell or space derby or something like that.
Yeah,
exactly. Just a silly ending. So yeah, they beat the shit out of each other, and then they reconcile, they hug, make up. I assume Kyle Riker leaves because we never see him again. And
yeah, he does. They say he's got to. He says he's got to go as they're like crying. He's like, yeah, okay, I got to go. By the way, now that we've reconciled, see you again in 20 years
later. And I guess the other real major thing about this episode is that it's technically the second time Riker has been offered command, but it's the first time it's the focus of a story.
Mm-hmm.
So he was offered command, or he says that he was once offered command in Arsenal of Freedom in the first season, and he refused it because he wanted to go to the Enterprise. And this is the first time he's ever actually been the focus of a story where the plot line is him considering leaving the Enterprise. They obviously get back to it in Best of Both Worlds, and there's another time after that, I think. So it becomes like a recurring theme.
Okay.
And
they got to make him seem in demand.
Yes.
Like he's like the top guy.
And I know we don't like to complain about like it's hard to criticize things when you know the show is serialized.
Right.
But it's kind of weird to just have this. It's not even like a cliffhanger type thing. It's just like, well, I know he's not going to leave, so I don't even know why.
Right.
Why bring this? Why even have that story?
They could have done anything. They could have done any kind of plot of them dealing with something, and yeah, they didn't have to have it be this decision that Riker had to make that actually might be even making it more complicated than it needs to be. If they're just going to tell the story of Riker's estranged father coming back to the Enterprise, they could really set that in any... That's what I meant like before, too, when I said this could be set on any single show.
Yeah.
It could be set against any single backdrop of the series as well here.
That's true.
So, yeah.
Unless they just realized they didn't have enough drama between the father and son, that they had to add this sort of...
Right.
But it's not even...
So
yeah, go ahead.
That basically makes it so that the Riker decision is an A plot. The father estrangement is the B plot. The Worf thing is the C plot, and the D plot is Data and Geordi are trying to solve a problem that doesn't need to be solved. Kind of thing.
This episode had a ton of plots.
It's a
running
thick episode.
It really is.
Thick episode.
And it dragged, which is insane for 4 plot lines.
To have 6 plot lines and still drag. Yeah,
it was really, really slow. Just some other things about this. Rick Berman and others supported Isakov, which is the director's attempts to add more emotion. They were all overruled by Roddenberry. Isakov's dissatisfaction with Roddenberry's handling of the episode led him to turn down other offers to direct further Trek installments. He commented, quote, "If you can't deal with the emotion, what's the point?" Which I think the show would slowly realize in the next couple episodes. We're getting real close to the change. You can feel the change in the air because this is... it might be the smallest episode. Do you know what I mean by smallest? in terms of this is like a totally character-driven episode.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, definitely. It is a character episode for sure.
I think it totally fails at that, but it is what the show would eventually become, where it's going to move away from sci-fi plot mechanics to character stuff.
That might be why I liked it so much, that it was a character-centric episode for Riker versus the plot-heavy stuff. That might be why I'm giving it more credit than it's probably deserved.
No, it's
in that regard.
Yeah, it certainly deserves credit for that. Whether or not it works is a totally different thing, but I appreciate the attempt anyway. So let's see. Let's get to our reviews. What would you give this guy?
I am going to give it a 3. I'm guessing you're going to give it like a 2.
I'm actually going 1. This is
Oh, that's right. You did say it was the worst one you've seen.
This is one of the worst things I think I've seen. I got legitimately angry watching it. And that's mostly
I didn't have that reaction.
That's mostly due to the horrible handling of this Riker storyline. Just for people wondering, a 1 on my scale is something I would never need to watch again. A 2 would be a decent or okay episode with problems, and a 3 is a pretty average one. A 4 is, something I'd recommend to others, and 5 is a classic. So this is a 1. I don't feel the need to ever watch this one again. I don't think it ever. I don't think it really adds anything.
I'm going for a 3. Because of the character-based nature of it.
Yep.
I think it earns a little points back for me. I think I'm realizing here. Kyle Riker, if you don't believe him to be a likable character, it's well acted. And I kind of liked. I kind of like the jujitsu scene. I gotta say, it was enjoyable. The father and son beating each other to death and reconciling at the end. I liked it.
I like how there's Riker seems to know Japanese from this, just because he's like,
yeah, that's weird too.
When Kyle Riker cheats, and I don't even understand how he cheats, but he somehow
that
cheats,
doesn't make any sense either.
And Riker knows the Japanese term for what he has done. It's like, it must be a very specific maneuver that Kyle Riker
when they bow to each other, they also say something in Japanese, I think, too.
They do, yeah.
You should have been the one to die, not her. Aroshiku. Omogashimasu.
Good. Get it all out.
Yeah.
So it might be part of the whole thing. You have to know all the terms.
Oh boy, it's a prerequisite for getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that might be our big disagreement here about how we think the show thinks of Kyle Riker. And maybe that'll inform everyone else's opinion who's been listening. But thank you, Modi, for coming on.
Thank you for having me back.
Always good to have you around. And, you guys enjoyed the content you heard today. A like, comment on YouTube is appreciated. iTunes, same thing. Rating, review helps everybody out. Thank you guys.
Or you'll bring the pain sticks.
I will. I'll bring the pain sticks. 1 pain stick out of 5, unless you review this thing correctly. The pain sticks are actually not a bad. I think the pain sticks come back, actually.
Oh, good.
Maybe in Deep Space Nine or something like that, but they do.
Oh, I hope O'Brien has one in Deep Space Nine. I'm watching it right now. I would want that to be a plot where Riker has, O'Brien has pain sticks in his quarters or something.
he certainly should.
That's why he knows so much.
O'Brien must suffer. Well, so you're watching Deep Space Nine right now. I guess we'll end the podcast here. So this is your first run through of it?
Yes.
Where are you?
I'm stalled out in season 1 still because it's not very easy to get through right now.
Okay.
I started watching it and we've made it about we have 2 episodes left in season 1 and I'm kind of stalled on it now.
Just because of the show or because you're busy?
Just because of the it's not as fun to watch generally a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But we're gonna power through it one of these times. It's just other things are coming up that are more exciting than watching Deep Space Nine in the late first season here.
Yeah, the Deep Space Nine definitely gets better.
So I just have to power through.
Yeah, I guess you got to power through. Although, do you have any other thoughts about it besides that?
I don't know. It's been. I mean, I do enjoy. I think I can see where it's going with Deep Space Nine here.
Right.
So I kind of like. I know I will like it eventually, but it's just tough to get through. We might have gotten through season 1 at this point. We might be on season 2.
Yep.
Early season 2, together. But it's tough going right now.
Yeah.
So I keep would I rather watch that or would I rather watch something I actually want to watch?
Right, yeah.
It's it feels like homework, so I don't want to have to watch it right now.
That's true, and you never want that to happen. I don't think I've watched all the first couple. I don't think I've watched the first 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine all the way through. I've seen it all the way from season 4 onwards. which is really good.
Maybe I should just skip through and just go back and watch all of it after I get through the whole entire thing. And we'll have a better appreciation for it at that point, maybe.
I'll send you a list. There's a list that someone made on the subreddit about the essential episodes that you kind of have to watch.
Okay,
and you can,
that might help.
It's like 2 or 3 in each season, and you can just watch the first 2 or 3, or from the first couple seasons, and then go from there.
All right, then I'll back up and try to power through it after I know that good things are on the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that could work. That could work.
Although my only last point is I watched Emissary. Just sort of out of the blue, the pilot for Deep Space Nine, and it's a great pilot for this. It's probably the best Trek pilot.
Yeah, it's good because that's where they introduce the wormhole in that one, right?
They do
at the second part of that first episode. Yeah,
yes,
that's a good episode.
And the only problem is it spends a little bit too much time with the prophets in the wormhole. That's my only problem with it, because Sisko's in there for like an entire episode and it takes way too long.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Well, thanks you, dude. Thanks for your opinions, and you guys. We'll be back. Modi will probably come back for another episode of season 2. I think we have like 5 or 6.
Probably.
Yeah, 5 or 6 available here. So I'll let you know what that is. And next time I will be back with Pen Pals, and that's an interesting one. So we'll see what we think about that one. So see you guys later.